Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. Welcome to a backend stream, a Node.js stream. So today we're going to talk about security with Node.js. Specifically, we're going to be using this project called NodeGoat and Alka with the 22 months. It's a very long time. Thank you for being with us all this time, Alka. We can get some hearts in the chat for Alka. And anyone else that resubbed. We got Vulture Bike with the Prime. Thank you for that. George with the 14 months, Danielle with the 13 months, and Alka with the 22 months. It's crazy. It's crazy. Did I just say log4j? No. So this is Node.js JavaScript. JavaScript is not Java. Log4j is a Java thing, but specifically this project is really cool. So essentially you can start up this Node.js app, and then once you start it up, it actually has like a tutorial section that talks about all the different vulnerabilities within it. So you have things like server-side JavaScript injection, SQL and NoSQL injection, log injection, and the app is vulnerable, so it's vulnerable to all of these attacks, and then you can actually fix them. There's things like broken session management, I guess password guessing when the password is too simple and there's no sort of like rate limiting. There's cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, all that stuff. So today we're essentially just going to go through all of these, talk about them, fix them, see what's vulnerable, that kind of thing. Yeah, I saw the news about Fetch being in Node. That's pretty cool. Up until now, they had Node Fetch, which you had to install. This one. But you don't have to do that anymore. Now it's built. I mean, you'll have to get the latest version of Node. And I don't know, is it behind a feature flag still? Regardless, that's good news for the JavaScript world. And how's everybody doing? Good? Did you have a good week? Huh? Can I get some smiles in chat? Johnny says they got a job. Thanks for providing all the great content. Helped me a lot. Oh, you're very welcome, Johnny Drama. But I would say it's probably mostly you, not me. Hey, Electrothermal. My week was all right. It snowed a lot here. It snowed a ton, so dealing with that. Yeah. The Fetch won't be fully integrated until Node 18, so that's a thing. Haven't heard of Fetch being put into Node. Yeah, so I contemplated on what I was going to do today. So I was actually thinking, well, what if I do like a This Week in JavaScript? We like go on Reddit. Oh, not new. Top. Sort by top. See all the news this week. And then just talk about it. But that's the top news story. But I decided against it. I'm going to try to do some sort of like news like thing in the future. Maybe with a little more preparation. And congrats to Pillage Man, who's literally in a full stack web dev bootcamp. Nice. Chief must have crushed their thumb. That's unfortunate. You got a day off work. Okay, that's good. And what's up, everything gone chain? Welcome into the Coding Garden, first time. Johnny, hello. Merkovic, hello, welcome in. Derbsaz says, love the hat. What is it? This is a brimless hat. If I started a clothing line, I would have hats like this. It's one of these. Check it out. I actually don't know exactly which one I bought. You can look at the reviews, but it's basically a hat with no brim. And I like to wear beanies, but sometimes it's too hot for beanies. So, yeah, it's that. Yeah. And Supeko, thank you for that. 7 months. Yeah, thank you for being here. Thanking me for streaming. Yeah. Oh, I'll show you in a second how you can get a flag next to your username. Josh is saying, 3rd week of classes to teach and 2 web dev projects going. Nice. Yeah, that's Ability says finally some Node.js. We've been doing a whole lot of front end stuff, so I thought it'd be nice to do some back end stuff. And what's more fun than hacking than breaking stuff? Well, thank you, Identifant, who likes the atmosphere. Very good. I'm not sure. I don't know. ESB tool, web methods. I don't know what you mean, but I hope you figure it out. So I'm going to use NodeGoat. I have heard of Juice Shop, which is another vulnerable Node.js app. Yeah. I'm more familiar with NodeGoat. Um, let's see. This seems like more interesting because it's like an online shop with a bunch of vulnerabilities in it. Overview. Cool. Maybe we'll take a look at that if we get through NodeGoat pretty quickly. So yeah. Do I maybe want to try a new challenge? Not really. I'm not in the mood. But I don't do Java regularly. I've done Java in the past. What's up, Richard? Thanks for being here. Yeah. What beanies would I recommend? I always wear Neff beanies. Not sponsored. I'm not sponsored by any of this, but these beanies right here are my favorite because they're like slouchy beanies. Like they hang off a little bit. Yeah. Cool. How was my week? My week was all right. It was all right. Node 17.5 would be when they add the feature flag. Yeah, so fetch in Node is a little bit away. A little bit. It's not exactly here yet. Yeah. I have not seen the show After Party. I might have to take a look at it. Yeah. One of the attacks we're going to look at today is cross-site scripting. So we'll talk about what it is, we'll exploit it, and then we'll fix it. Yeah. Showing a new project at work with the cybersecurity group. There's so much to learn. Oh, shadowing. That's fun. You get a lot to. It's a lot to learn, but it's an interesting topic. Cool. Welcome in, everyone. First of all, let's play the drop game. In the chat, type !drop me, and your avatar will fall from the sky. But I actually need to show it on the page. Give me a sec. One moment. Just a moment. Why is it not showing? Where is it? Did I remove it entirely? Oh, there it is. Okay, let's try again. Here, I'm gonna turn off slow mode for like 2 seconds. Okay, so you can like send messages, and then I'm gonna turn slow mode back on. There we go. Cool. But yeah, this is the drop game. You can play it throughout the stream. If you land in the garden, you'll get your name on the screen for a second. Great job. Amain Dife and SQL Gordster, and prod is for testing. Great drops. Cool. Node.js notebooks for VS Code? I'll take a look at it. And put that in the parking lot. But we got some first timers in here. Welcome in. If you've never been to the stream before, feel free to say hello right now. I'll say hi right back to you. I can do this. Yeah, cool. Ibara, what's up? And Shing and Azile and Lasmeranda and Pillage Man. What's up? Everything on Chan, Markovic, Derp Sauce, Ian, or Lan. Welcome in, first timers. So yeah, you can customize your chat messages. So you can see I'm a Hot Grill has the Tunisia flag and the WordPress logo, and Fob has the Netherlands flag and the PHP logo. You too can do this. So to set your flag, you need to do !flag followed by your 2-character country code. It sometimes works with the country name, but if you just do the 2-character country code, it should work. Yeah, great. And then the other thing is, all of the icons on the Font Awesome brand cheat sheet. What is your badge? It looks like a squid or a dolphin. It's the Phoenix framework. Okay. Have you been doing development in the Phoenix framework? Yeah, we got New Zealand, Argentina, Chile, Canada, United States, Norway. We got people from all over. You've been working on a Phoenix, but you have not been working in Phoenix. What does that mean? Cool. Okay, and then you can set your team. Pick something from this page. I'm gonna go with Android. I actually got a new phone. I got the Pixel 6. It's an Android. So !team followed by anything from that page, and then it'll show up next to your name like that. Yeah, Pixel 6. I got it. I was on the Pixel 3 XL for a very long time, and then decided to update. Yeah, I did some research. I mean, the fact that you can get it brand new for $600 is kind of crazy. I didn't get the Pro. I just got the Pixel 6. It's like a flagship phone for under $1,000. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. And you have, so it's funny. I have I've been through all the phones. Let me show you. Well, not all of them. I'm very pragmatic when it comes to upgrading phones. Like, if my phone still works, I'm not going to upgrade for the most part because I mean, my Pixel 3 XL really was just having battery life issues. Other than that, it was a great phone. But I had the Pixel XL. You can see all my dirty fingerprints when it first came out. Well, actually, not even when it first came out. I got this like a year or two after it came out because I got a better price on it. And then eventually, like a few years later, upgraded to the Pixel 3 XL, and now I have the Pixel 6. So I skip generations. I don't just upgrade phones for upgrade's sake. But yeah. I guess the only weird thing about the Pixel 6 is not weird, but different is the fingerprint reader is in the screen. Give me a second. I'll show you. Do 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 do. Cool. I had to set my wallpaper to be my dog's face. But the fingerprint reader is within the screen. So you have to do it like that, which is different from the 3XL, which has the fingerprint reader on the back, which I like because you just like pick it up, put your finger right there, unlock it. But yeah, I like Android 12. It seems fine. I like that you can actually completely disable camera and microphone access for the entire phone. So you disable it, and then no app can use it, even if they have the permissions to use it, which is pretty sweet. Yeah. All right. Let's let's keep moving. Thanks for all the supports. Photon with the 50 bits, Sledge Dog with the 20 months, Unfair with the 20 months, R1 with the 2 months, and In Griffin with the Prime sub. Thank you all very much for being here. Yeah, I mean, I guess while we're talking about Android and Shot in the Dark, thank you for the 12 months. I was looking at Graphene OS because I'm starting to care more about my security, I guess, or care more about my privacy. I mean, I already have like all the Google stuff, right? My photos get automatically backed up to Google Photos. I have Gmail. I have a Pixel phone, so I'm already within the Google ecosystem. But the amount of permissions that the Google Play services has by default on Android is insane. It's literally every single possible permission. If you look at Google Play services, yeah. So, I mean, you can't see this, but this is literally every possible permission that could be given to an app is given to Google Play services, and then all of the Google apps integrate with that, so they essentially have all permissions, even if a Google app doesn't request that specific permission. Yeah, which is crazy. But Graphene OS is a thing. It's a custom ROM built off of Android open source project that doesn't have any Google stuff in it. And then they allow you to add Google Play services, but it sandboxes it. So instead of being like a super privileged app, you can only give it a few permissions. But I installed this and then I tried it for a little bit, but it's so hard to to get off of Google if you're not really prepared for it. Like, And the other thing is RCS, like rich communication services, like the SMS that can do like reactions and it's encrypted and stuff like that. I was having trouble getting that set up within Graphene OS, so I just switched back to stock. Yeah. Well, you won't lose your warranty because you can actually relock your bootloader, and it depends on what kind of phone you have. But eventually, I'm gonna make the switch, and I'm gonna de-Google my life, and I'll tell you all about it because I'm gonna self-host a lot of stuff. Okay, we got some more supports. Thank you to Shot in the Dark for the 12 months, and Kylo Yeager. Thanks for the 2 months. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm also looking into just self-hosting a lot of stuff, especially like, I mean, if you haven't heard of it, something like OwnCloud, which is completely open source, but you can host it on your own server, or you can host it on the cloud server, and it has like file sharing and all the other stuff you would want from from cloud services, but you can put it on your own server. Yeah. Cool. First, the switch has to be done in the brain if you really want to. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, at this point, I have given up my privacy for convenience, right? Like, being able to use Gmail and everything else. Yeah, it's going to be an effort for sure. I don't host my own mail server. I use Mailgun. And then I just pointed at my own custom domain. That's another thing I was looking at was like CowMail is a self-hosted email server. Yeah, MailCow, that's the one. So you can self-host your own email server. But for those of you that know anything about email servers, like it's really difficult to host your own and like not make sure that, and it's difficult to make sure that your messages aren't getting marked as spam and stuff like that. But MailCow is cool because you can actually set up transport. So like you could have MailCow as your backend mail server, but then you could use Mailgun as a transport, and Mailgun ensures that like the IP addresses it's using aren't marked as spam and stuff like that. I know, but that's for future discussion. Yeah. Nextcloud, is that the same thing as OwnCloud? Maybe that's what the one I was thinking of. I honestly don't know the difference. I think Nextcloud is actually the one that I was thinking of. What is OwnCloud? Maybe it's a fork? I don't know. I feel like I've used OwnCloud in the past, but more recently I was looking at Nextcloud. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you'd love to know how mail services work. Like, it's not difficult to build your own because it's all like open source Linux packages. But what's difficult is if you don't have like a known IP address associated with that mail server, things like Gmail will send your messages to the spam folder because it doesn't know about the IP address. It's not like trusted. So that's the thing you really have to worry about. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, yeah. We're wasting a lot of time. I guess that's fine. It's good to see you all. It's been a week. Thanks for being here. Yeah, redemptions don't show up. Usually, I just go in and give you back all your seedlings at the end of the stream. So that's the thing. All right. Anything else we need to talk about before we get started with NodeGoat? Cool. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Gmail is like they are scanning every single one of your emails, like regardless if they're sharing that information with anyone. I mean, Google themselves are using it, and like the other thing is now the Gmail app has like built-in advertisements that appear in your thread of messages. I'm trying to figure out, is this okay to show? But I basically, I mean, you can't see it, but I have an ad for DoorDash, which is the third down in my Gmail app. And it looks like it's an email, but it's actually an ad. So I don't like that. I don't like that. And like all the ads are super relevant because they're reading all of my emails. I mean, somebody's not reading it, but they have algorithms. A computer is reading it. I mean, I guess technically you could have like a router level ad blocker on your network, and that would prevent things like that showing up in the Gmail app. But I don't know. I don't know. And Wanma is saying, "Do I think Deno is going to replace Node soon?" I don't know about soon. I haven't kept up with it. Um, I think eventually either Node.js will adopt some of the nice security features that Deno has, or Deno will take over. But I don't know about anytime soon. I think people are just so deep into the Node.js ecosystem, it would be hard to switch. Yeah. Do I think it's worth it for a degree in computer science? I talked about this in one of my recent Q&A streams that I uploaded to YouTube, but my thought is, if you are fresh out of college, or sorry, if you're fresh out of high school and you don't have any life experience, get a computer science degree. If you are an adult learner and you already have a degree in something else, you probably don't need a computer science. I mean, you don't need a computer science degree. You can just self-teach and then go from there. But my thought is college is like character building. At least it was for me. Like, I learned how to live on my own. I learned how to be an adult. And so it wasn't just about the CS degree for me anyways. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to try to switch to Canine Mail as well. Because the thing is, like, I'll never be able to completely get rid of my Gmail account just because, like, so many things use it. But I'll have to gradually get off of it. I don't know. As a 27-year-old graduating in 4 months, said, hey, that's no problem. Hey, what's up, Mango? Thanks for being here. What's up, Rusty? And how much is homely versus services? What do you mean homely? Like home hosted? Or is homely a thing? Yeah, and Rfire is asking home lab. Oh, yeah, so I'm really looking into home labs right now. That's another thing. I'm sharing all the things about my life right now, but I'm looking into getting like a 5 to 10-year-old either Dell or HP server. Like, if you just search Amazon for servers, you can find like a PowerEdge server. This probably was released in like 2010, but it's got 2 quad-core processors, 48 gigs of RAM, and it's only $240. Like, that's one of the other cool things about these is like they have so much RAM. Like, I think one of them that I was looking into is like the Dell PowerEdge R710? Something like this. There was one machine that had like 192. I think this is it. Well, this is closer to the one that I wanted, but it had like 192 gigs of RAM. It had 6 hard drives, all 2 terabyte, configured in RAID for $500. Like, it's insane. You can so my plan is to get something like that, and then I'll just have that at home for all of my services running in my house, like Home Assistant, which is an open source like home automation thing. Most devices that you like hook up to the other smart home stuff will hook up to this, but it's completely internal to your network. It's not on like some company servers. And then also things like ZoneMinder for security cameras. It's a completely open source place to view and configure all of your cameras. So yeah, I'm gonna create my own little home lab and start installing apps like that. So, yeah. Join the military, use the GI Bill to go to school. Yeah, I mean, that's not a horrible idea either, but you do have to put up with being in the military for, I think, at least 4 years, right? Yeah. I don't have an alternate for Gmail yet. I gotta do some research. Yeah. Biggest hurdle going back to school is knowing exactly what I need to do, the thing that I want. Meanwhile, there are 20 some odd other kids in class who have no clues what they're doing and have to learn absolutely everything in a scattershot just to cover all the bases. Yeah. Exactly. Cool. Yeah, 27 is young. That's fine to be graduating college at that time. You got the rest of your life ahead of you. Yeah. Oh, for sure, Photon. And I'm doing some research. Like the PowerEdge R710 or R720 will run Ubuntu 20.04. So like it's gonna run the latest Linux. I don't plan on using like Windows Server or anything like that. And then because it has so much RAM, and like the one I was looking at had like was it a 8-core processor, and it had 2 of them. So basically, you could set it up as a hypervisor with something like Proxmox. So Proxmox you can install as the main operating system, and then it gives you like a web UI to create virtual machines. So you could have this beefy server and just have like 10, 20 different virtual machines running on it. Yeah. Yeah. Got any ideas for things to do in Denver? I'll have to DM you. I'll come up with a list. But you should go to Meow Wolf if you haven't. So I had some friends that came into town, and I took them there, and they had a wonderful time. So this is an immersive art experience. It's this gigantic building. It's like 4 or 5 floors, and it's just full of interactive immersive art. And so like you go in and you just wander. You just go through the different rooms, and part of it looks like that. It's pretty awesome. So if you can find the time, I would go there. Yeah, definitely go there. I will say it's like always busy. I mean, especially if you like go on a weekend. But if you look at tickets, you have to purchase them ahead of time, and usually they're like completely booked up. And like even if you were to buy these slots here, eventually they get full. But it's still fun. It's fun. But yeah, I'll come up with some other stuff. I'll DM you. You feature where your apps can sign in from a custom app. Oh, you want to implement your own OAuth server. I'm not going to Google it, but just search for like Node.js custom OAuth server. And that will allow other apps to sign in with it. OAuth 2 is like a standard that other things could integrate with. Yeah, that's the thing that I'm contemplating right now. So if you get one of those servers like the R710 or whatever else, they are loud, very loud. They have a ton of fans. They're meant to be in server rooms. So I might end up just doing it anyways, because it's like it's gonna be in the basement, and it's really only really loud if it's under heavy load. Like after it spins up, it kind of like idles down. But yeah, those servers can be extremely loud. Stony Eagle says, I run 2 Dell PowerEdge 610 for my storage and 710 for work. Yeah. And that's the other thing, is I'll build like a NAS server. I mean, something I never showed on stream. Probably shouldn't handle it like this, but this is a 4-drive RAID enclosure. And so I have 2 10-terabyte drives in here. And that's where I've been backing up like all of my old streams and stuff like that. But I could plug that thing into one of the servers, or you could even just set up the server itself as a RAID server, because it has like like 8 hard drive slots. Yeah, I'm probably gonna go with the 2U, because and with at least 8 hard drive slots, so it has room for expansion in the future. Yeah. I thought it was a toaster. I mean, it looks like a toaster. It's kind of heavy though. So it's funny actually. So here's some other interesting things. You ever heard of hard drive shucking? Where it's basically where you purchase a sealed like Seagate drive. So you can buy these external drives. They look like this. But if you shuck them, if you open them up, sometimes they contain really good hard drives, like a red drive, or a drive specifically made for NAS, or network attached storage. And the price you're paying for the thing itself is like way cheaper. I mean, not way cheaper, maybe $30 or $40 cheaper than if you were to buy the hard drive itself. So I shucked 4 10-terabyte Seagate drives to put in there. Yeah. Well, welcome in, Winston. Thanks for being here. What's up, Katoli? Any recommendations for a great beginning book on JavaScript? Like if you're a complete beginner, JavaScript for Kids. Honestly, I believe it's from No Starch Press, the one from No Starch Press. Yeah, it says it's for kids, but it's. I mean, I personally didn't go through it, but I had students that went through it, and it's really good. And then if you're, I mean, honestly, it might be for a complete beginner as well, but the You Don't Know JS, YDKJS by Kyle Simpson. These are really good ones. I recommend this book if you're coming from another language into JavaScript. And his older version of it is completely open source. He has it's like a 6-book series. But like if you're coming from like a statically typed language into like the Node.js world, I highly recommend you read these books, because JavaScript is just different. If you treat it like C# or Java or C, you're gonna have a bad time. So learn the language, and that specific book series, You Don't Know JS, is really nice about really explaining why JavaScript is the way it is. I don't know. All right, everyone's here. Let's do it. How do I find all these apps? I mean, I search a lot. I do a lot of searching. Yeah. Proxmox with Kubernetes for Docker. See, that's the kind of thing I want to like set up locally too. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna miss a lot of your messages. I apologize, but yeah. It ain't much, but it's honest work. A smarter way to learn JavaScript. I haven't heard that one, but that sounds good. Why the title? I'll show you. So we are about to pull up some source code that is vulnerable to all 10 of the Open Web Application Security Project top 10 list. So let's just get started. I appreciate you all. Thanks for being here. Hearts in the chat, smiles in the chat. Let's write some code. Let's fix some broken code, and let's learn about security. Okay. Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. Welcome to this episode where we're going to be talking about Node.js security. Now, specifically, what we're going to be using is this project called NodeGoat. So this is a Node.js application where you can look at all of the source code. It's on GitHub. So you can look through, you can see all of the routes and everything else. And this application is vulnerable to a lot of different things. It's basically a not broken in the sense of features, because you'll see once we start this thing up, it technically works for like end users, but sprinkled throughout the code are vulnerabilities. Things like command injection or SQL injection, or things like cross-site scripting or broken authentication where they're like not hashing passwords, or cross-site request forgery where remote sites can make requests in the context of a user of another site, those kind of things. So sprinkled throughout the source code are comments that kind of describe the vulnerability and tell you how to fix them. So and if you just search the web for the OWASP top 10, this is a list that it's been around for a very long time. Essentially, every year they come out with what are the 10 most important security vulnerabilities that you should protect your application against, your applications, regardless of language. Like the top 10 list applies to any backend language that's like creating APIs and things like that. And specifically, because on this channel I'm a JavaScript developer, we're gonna explore them with Node.js, which is a backend framework for JavaScript. Yeah. And I mean, I think if they're giving you an exam on it, they're probably just going to ask you to like list them. What are the top 10? And then probably describe what each of them are. So yeah. What if we're yeah. And so that's the other interesting thing about it being a top 10 list. Like these are just the ones that you should at the very minimum make sure your app is not vulnerable to. That's why they kind of release it. But you don't stop at the top 10. Like you don't just say, well, my app's not vulnerable to the top 10, so I guess I'm good to go, because there's a whole lot more. This is just like the bare minimum. Yeah. Did I miss some other stuff? Yeah. Oh yeah. Look at all those smiles. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the smiles in the chat. Yeah, if you're hacking me, make sure to start at number 11. Yeah, so you can look at the top 10 list there, and then just the general website, the OWASP.org, the Open Web Application Security Project, is an organization that is all about visibility into application security and stuff like that. So yeah, we're gonna set this app up, we're gonna demonstrate the vulnerabilities, and then we're gonna fix the vulnerabilities. Another thing that someone in the chat pointed me to was the OWASP Juice Shop, which I'd heard of in the past, but I haven't like played around with. And so we may set this one up too, but this is essentially like an e-commerce store built with Node.js that's vulnerable to a bunch of different stuff that you can fix as well. But we're just going to take a look at NodeGoat for now, and then if we have time, we'll take a look at JuiceShop. So let's do it. There's a couple of ways to set it up. You could actually just clone it down, do an npm install, start it up. However, it also requires a database to like demonstrate some of the SQL and NoSQL injection vulnerabilities. So you would need to install all that locally. But if you don't want to do that, you can just use Docker, which will automatically spin up the database and stuff like that. So let's do it. Do I have NodeGoat? No, I don't. Clear. Cool. So we're going to clone NodeGoat into a directory. We're going to go in there, and we're going to just say docker compose up, and that will actually, it'll pull down all the images that it needs, including the database images, and start those behind the scenes. And then once it's up and running, we can start to take a look at it. Yeah. Does using an ORM improve security? So I would say an ORM will likely already do parameter escaping for things like a SQL command. So let's say you're writing a SQL query, you want to select the user where the ID is equal to 42. If that value 42 is coming from user provided input for some reason, I mean, usually, okay, just bear with me. Let's say that value for the user ID is coming from user input, and you just pass that value directly into your SQL query. Select star where user ID is equal to user provided value. If you don't escape that value, then the user could potentially send an ID that executes a command instead of just being like a numerical value, like on a search box or something like that. Yeah. So all of that to say, if you were to use an ORM to make that query, it's very likely that they are already escaping any sort of parameters that you're passing in. So you don't have to manually do that. Other than that, I don't think an ORM would improve your security any more than that. I mean, anyone in chat, you can feel free to chime in with your experience and opinions, but that's really the main thing an ORM would do for you, would be parameterized queries. And I believe there is an example of a parameterized query, or of a non-parameterized query that we can convert to one to show that it is vulnerable. Okay, it's up and running. Let's see what we got. Nice. So the whole idea with the NodeGoat app is an employee retirement savings application. So there are like multiple users. You can log in as the admin user. The super admin has a bunch of control and can see a lot of stuff. And then the other users are more limited to like just seeing their account. So they can see how much they have in retirement savings and stuff like that. I believe if you go to /tutorial, yeah, you can see the various top 10 list. And actually, let's just start at the top. We're gonna do the number one. Or should we go in reverse? We're going to start at the top because these are the more interesting ones. And the first one we're going to demonstrate is server-side injection. Actually, let's see if it has SQL injection vulnerability. Allocations, yeah. So actually, let's just jump right into SQL injection. We're going to demonstrate that this app is vulnerable to SQL injection. I know that I could do -d to start the Docker container in the background, but I want to see the logs. I want to see what's happening. So let's open this up. I believe there are user accounts. I don't know if those are pre-existing. Yeah, okay, so the admin account is admin and then admin _123. So let's just go ahead and log in. Cool. So I am now logged in as the super admin. I can see like employees and everyone here. And I can log out. And then what is the other user account I have? I have just the user1 account. So username is user1, and then user1 _123 should get me in. Yeah, and then I can see for this specific user, like this is how much money they have in retirement savings. They can adjust their contributions. They can see allocations. They have like a user profile, all that good stuff. Okay, so specifically the SQL injection vulnerability, it says is in allocation. So I'm going to try and take a look at this file. And for now, I'm actually just going to disable ESLint. Because their code does not agree with my style guide. Yes. Okay, here we go. So this is likely the backend file that is handling when a user is on this allocations page. So use a threshold value will return asset allocation above the specified stock percentage number. So if I do 10, yeah, it gives me all allocations that are above 10. But if I do like 30, I don't even know what this is doing, honestly. What is this page supposed to do? It will return all asset allocation above the specified stock percentage number. 0.1? 20? I honestly don't know what it does, but what is very likely is that whatever the user enters into this input box is getting sent to the backend. And it's likely this allocations file. So when you're looking through the NodeGoat source code, you'll see comments like this. So fix for A4 insecure DOR. We want to find the one that is for A1. So I'm actually just going to search the whole database for A1. Here we go, allocations DAO. Get by user ID and threshold. So it takes in the user ID, they have the threshold, and then they're just straight up doing a SQL query. So user ID is equal to that, and stocks are greater than the threshold value that was provided. So right now, we can try to figure out where this specific function is used, get user ID by threshold. Here it is. Yeah, so this is the actual route that will... Actually, this isn't even the route. This is... Oh, I see. It has a display all allocations route, and it gets it by threshold. Cool. So this function will call that other function that we were looking at, which is going to be in data allocations DAO. So that route calls this function. It passes in the user ID and it passes in the threshold value. Just to see this working, let's log what the threshold is. And let's see, does the Docker container auto restart? I don't think it does. I might have to fix that just so we can have an easier time here. It doesn't set up any volumes either. Does that mean I have to build the container every time? Let's see. If I just restart it, bummer. Yeah, I might have to configure it. Let's see if test gets logged to the console. Oh, I need to log back in. Cool. So we're here, redirecting to login. We send test. No allocations found for the user. Undefined. Yeah, it's not working. All right, we gotta fix this. Okay, so this has nothing to do with application security. But first of all, I need to set up a volume so that any file changes I make are actually mapped to the container. So if we look at the Docker file, it has a working directory as user source app. So in my Docker compose, I actually want a volume that that maps this directory to user source app. Because we do a copy right? Working directory, copy that, copy that. Cool, and then I'm actually just going to install a nodemon and then use nodemon instead of just node. Yeah, I believe parts of it are server rendered, yes. But an injection vulnerability doesn't care if you're server rendering or even if you're returning like a JSON API response. Cool. This app was not written with TypeScript. No, it's all just JavaScript. Why is there a nodemon.json? Is that being used anywhere? Oh, there's a dev script. Cool. And then we just need to change the Docker compose to use the dev script instead. So npm run dev. All right. Let's rebuild our container. And see if this works. I don't really have any direct Docker container tutorials. Oh, threshold gets parsed as an int? Only the user ID does. I didn't even see the word threshold logged in my console, which is why I think it was incorrect. Let's get started with the DB. I'm just right now, I'm curious if it's using MongoDB or if it's using SQL. I guess it is just using Mongo. So we'd be more vulnerable to command injection or like NoSQL injection versus SQL injection. Regardless, let's see if this worked. Docker compose up. How does use strict change things here? It's just going to change what errors the JavaScript engine would throw. It gives it's the JavaScript engine is more strict about the rules about your code. So like you couldn't do things like create a variable out of thin air. Use strict mode would complain about this and would just throw an error because it says you need to at least use var, let, or const. You can't just have a variable like that. So strict mode has other things that it would throw errors for. Cool. Let's try again. Oh, and it's port 5000 for whatever reason. Is it? Wasn't it port 4000 earlier? I don't understand why it would want nodemon to be on a different port. It's not taking my changes. You know what? We might just have to use the Juicebox app. So like, I made a change to the package JSON. I guess it copied that first so it would be on a different layer, but it put it in here, and I'm telling it to map that. That's the thing. I don't want to have to rebuild every time. I want to just be able to modify the code, and then it modifies it within the Docker container. npm install. Oh, it puts it in a separate. I've never seen this in a Docker file before. Any Docker aficionados? Why do we have two different froms? Is this actually two images? Like, why is this not all done within the same image? Multi-stage building? I don't like it. I mean, we don't really need to do that, do we? Oh, and then that's why home user app is where everything gets copied into. One for the build and one for the app itself. What? And then what does Docker Compose do? It's building that. Yeah, so that's what I was trying to do here, but apparently there are two different places that it uses. Yeah, what if I want that? And what if I put everything in user source app instead of home user app? And what if I just copy everything? NoSQL databases are still vulnerable to SQL injection. Yeah, so it wouldn't be SQL injection. It would basically just be injection. And I'll show you an example of it. Oh, I see why they change the ownership. Why do they need to change the ownership? Why can't we just put that in? Yeah, so home user app. The user is Node. Oh, I see. There's the copy command. That copies everything in. Cool. And then why do we need this everywhere? Why can't we just use Node? It's fine. It's fine. So now that I have that in my Docker Compose, this needs to be this directory, home node app. What's going on is I'm trying to make it so that I can modify the code, and it is automatically changed within the Docker container as well. All right, that's the winner. Let's kill it. We're gonna build it. No cache. We'll get there. We'll get there. I haven't done Newbie Tuesdays in a long time. Yeah. Though I have a prospect, a potential noob that we can bring on stream pretty regularly. But yeah. All right, moment of truth. It should be listening on port 4000. Great. It's using NodeMon. Great. We can go here. We can log in as user 1. Great. And if we go to allocations and submit like 20. There we go. So threshold is logging. And then the check to see if it's really working is I just updated the code. Please restart. So save that. Yep. Automatic restart. And then we'll try again. It works. Okay. So we're at a point where we can explore this. No allocations found for the user. Oh, do I have to create? Can I not create them? Asset allocations. Okay. If there are no allocations, return the error. Let's see if there's another user account we can look at. We could create them from the sign up page. Let's try creating a new user. Great. Allocations. 20. Cool. I feel like the code is just broken to begin with. Stocks is greater than threshold. Regardless. All right. Now I can actually demonstrate this. Okay, so basically whatever is typed into this input box is directly passed into this where clause. And this where clause is being passed through to the, it's probably Mongoose. Like the DB is getting passed into allocations. Let's look at the main app and see where the DB gets defined. So we create a Mongo client, config creates the DB. DB is a MongoDB connection URI. Oh, and then we create an instance of this by passing in the database connection string. But DB is the actual database instance. It is not the connection string. And then where is this getting used? So I guess the other thing is this is a, a lesson in navigating large code bases that you're unfamiliar with, because that's kind of what I'm doing right now. So it brings in routes. Here we go. It creates a Mongo client. and then Mongo client is available as DB right here. So that's ultimately what I wanted to see. What are they using? MongoDB. Great. Which means that this line right here, $where, is getting passed into Mongo client. So if we look at the documentation for Mongo client, I believe it's just MongoDB actually. This one, it's the official driver. We can see when we're querying it, we can pass in like where command clauses and stuff like that. Cool. So search criteria gets called right here, which ultimately returns this object. And so it's doing a collection.find and passing in this, which has the where clause. And what we can see is that these two values here are not escaped. So the example they have of hacking it are to pass in a value like this. Let's see what happens if we pass this value in. My guess, if we look at this, is that that is just going to hang the database server. So basically, that value that we pass in doesn't get sanitized, just gets directly passed into this where query, which then gets passed into this find call. And so this specific little code right here is going to get executed, and the database is just going to spin forever. So we see that spinning. We see that the thing is, like, the app is completely unresponsive for anyone. So if anyone else were to try to go, maybe not. Actually, I guess it's just unresponsive for that one database query. But it's still spinning. So that one database query is just sitting there. It's hung. It's like never going to end because it has a while true on it. The other attack that they have is this, which actually returns. So this will be a more interesting one because this returns basically every allocation. Let's take a look at it. So if you imagine, so the user sends this, we don't escape it at all. And so the query now becomes this. So where stocks are greater than 1 and return 1 equals 1. So it basically just says return everything in the database. So this is going to be a NoSQL injection that will return every single allocation in the database. So instead of just the 3 that are owned by this test user, let's see. Boom. We get allocations for every single user in the system. This is a common attack if a specific form is vulnerable to some kind of injection, because then you can just start listing stuff from the database. And there are tools where you can just point it at a page that has an input, and it's going to try a bunch of these really different common injection tactics until it gets back some data. And there are tools that where you do that, and it can actually like map out the entire database. Yeah, SQL map is one of them, because basically it's able to execute queries, so it can now do things like list all of the tables, list the schema for all of the tables. This is like a very simple example because it's just listing all of the data in that one specific collection that we're talking to. Cool. So the fix, let's fix it. But yeah, the fix is to just not pass it in directly, to actually turn it into a number. So now if we do this, we can actually like throw some errors if the passed in value was not valid. Cool. So before we just passed in that user provided value directly, the fix for it is to parse it into what you're expecting it to be. So in this case, we're expecting it to be an integer. So we're parsing it into an integer and then validating that it's within a threshold as well. And if it's not, then it just straight up throws an error that it was not valid. So if we save that, we should see a restart. Great. And then now, if I try doing that, that same thing, the 1 equals 1, it's just going to throw an error. Well, I got to log back in. Cool. It basically gives us nothing. But now, if I do that, oh, I forgot that I created a new user. Let's log in as the other user. Cool. So that that doesn't break it. And now it's actually passing the value. Though, this doesn't even seem to work, right? Because it's only supposed to give us allocations that are greater than that value, right? I don't know if maybe I'm just not understanding it. It's broken. Yeah, let me see really quick what we're actually getting back in the allocations. Yeah, so the other interesting thing here is like every time the Docker container restarts, I lose my session because it's using sessions in memory. So that's kind of unfortunate. But so if I just pass in 0, we're going to see all of the allocations. 21. Great. I think it's just broken in general. So basically, if they don't have any allocations, you get back that error page. Otherwise, it's just going to list the ones that they already have, which are these. So that's fine. Cool. So that's it for like a NoSQL injection. Let's see if there's any other injection vulnerabilities within the app. Working as intended, yeah. So that was the NoSQL injection. We fixed it. And again, the way you fix it is you parse and sanitize the input instead of passing it directly into the query. Now, of course, this is using Mongo. It's not using like a SQL driver, but you would do the exact same thing with a SQL driver. So pretty much any library out there that you're using to talk to a SQL database has a way to pass in a parameterized query. And that's like another option as well. Whereas in this scenario, we're specifically parsing the value and then passing it in directly. In the SQL world, like if we look at the PG module, which is a module for talking to Postgres, we can take a look at queries, and there are parameterized queries. So if you're using SQL, this is what you would want to use, where basically you write your SQL query using $1, $2 corresponding to values in an array that will get escaped and then passed into the SQL query. So instead of just putting the user provided like username value and email value right here, you use $1, $2, and then it passes it in from that array. So in the SQL world, you would want to use something like this, a parameterized query. Okay. It looks like I found one other A1 vulnerability. Server-side JavaScript injection. Ooh, okay. So this is for when they're updating contributions. Yes, okay, this is actually beautiful. So this is why in the Node.js world, there's a saying like eval is evil. Check this out. Okay, so this has to do with the contributions page. Let's log in as that user again. So we go to contributions. I can specify my pre-tax employee pre-tax payroll contribution. So I could change this to like 10%. I could change my Roth contribution to 10% and then like after tax as 5%. And if I update that, beautiful, it updated. But again, these are user provided values. And if we look at the backend code, it's just passing those values directly into eval, which ultimately would turn them into numbers. Because if you were to execute like eval and then passing in a string that has a number on it. So if I do eval of 10, oh, I can't even use eval. My console has like a content security policy that doesn't even let me use eval, so I can't demonstrate it. Basically, this code is really, really bad. And if you want to see, yeah, exactly, that's what we're gonna do, Nookie Poo. We can pass in any valid JavaScript. So we're gonna pass in process.exit, and then the whole server just shuts down. Look at the whole server just shut down. And so now it's down for everyone. If there were other people using this website, it's completely down. Like the Node.js process exited. Yeah. we need it to restart. There we go. So it's restarted back up. And the fix is just like, don't use eval. Use exactly what you are trying to do, which is in this case, parse it as an integer, because parse int is going to return like 0 if it's an invalid value. Instead of actually trying to execute the code. Yeah. So there are any other number of crazy things we could do here with eval. Like, honestly, we could pass in code that like makes an HTTP request in the context of the server itself. Yeah, probably returns nan. You're right. Yeah, you could fire up a reverse shell. Yeah. Actually, I want to try to see if we can do like a quick demonstration of that. So. Node.js reverse shell. Yeah, that's the other thing is you could really freeze the server for everyone. So not just shutting it down, you could lock up the server like 100% CPU. So if we go back over here, and so the code is vulnerable again. It's doing eval. If I just do while true, now the server will just spin forever, and it's locked up for everyone because Node.js is single threaded, and on that one single thread, I've locked it up with an infinite loop, so like nobody else can go to the site as well. Cool. I'm just gonna kill it and restart it. Sleuther dev has a way of doing it. So you spin up child process and then do netcat. Whose server is this? Netcat. You don't have to. Yeah, I don't know why the %20s showed up. Bin sh server address port. So this would be the server that I'm opening up the remote shell to. Can I like do this locally? Well, what do I need to run on my computer? Like if I wanted to just do a remote shell to itself and then like pop up on my machine, because I believe I'm at this local IP address. Yeah, that's my local IP address. So I see. So in another terminal, I would say I'm listening here on port 4444. LVNP. Missing port with option -L. What am I missing? Oh, true, drop me. Yeah, basically, you could do anything that you could do with Node.js. Like, I could require in, like the FS module, and then, is there like a remove or a delete, or yeah, there's an RM, and so I could do RM slash. So I could send this code to the server, and then it would just start deleting all the files on the server. I'm not going to do that because that would really break it. Does anyone know? I guess who was helping with that? Slothufer. Do you have an updated command I can use? Because basically what I want is over here, this thing is going to be listening for connections, and then I'm going to inject code that makes a connection to it here. Not sure why it's not working. Let's see. I mean, it could be because I'm on a Mac and it's listen for inbound connections and then local port number. I don't think he knows what he's doing. Was that it? It could be like maybe that it's different on a Mac. So this is now going to make a remote shell connection to port 4444. All right. Server restarted. We've got our shell that's now listening. And then I'm going to inject this into it. So, yeah, let me get it going. But what I was going to say, so someone was asking, like, is this the log4j vulnerability? So log4j had a remote code execution vulnerability. And essentially, if something allows you to remotely execute code, you could do something like this. Because if I can execute code that opens up a remote shell, great, I'm in. Why is this not working? Okay, fine. Oh, invalid contribution percentages? Did I not save this? Maybe I didn't save it. Go. Cool. Cool. Oh no, I have to log in again. No, it didn't work. It didn't work. Not yet anyways. I don't know if did the test user get removed? Oh well. Oh, okay. Actually, I think I know what's happening. So because this code right here evaluates to like undefined, this isn't waiting for it. Yeah, it's not waiting for it to complete. And so here, it's just going to give us the value undefined. So we need some way of making it wait for this. We need this to be blocking. Is there an exec synchronous? Yeah, that's what we want. We want it to be blocking. That's why. Okay. All right. Moment of truth. Throw that in there. Command failed. We're trying to open up a remote shell to this terminal here, but we're having some issues doing it. Do I have this command right? Invalid option E. I don't know. Regardless, if you take anything away from the past 20 minutes, don't use eval. Basically, use the thing fit for purpose. In this case, would be parseInt, because instead of evaluating the code, we just parse it into an integer. Yeah. Reverse. I'm curious because I've never really done this. Reverse shell generator. Okay, port 4444. And then that. So if we do Mac, so it's listening on 4444. Yeah, my Mac just doesn't like it. This might do it. Okay, this is it. This is the winner. Okay, so that's going to do that, and then we're going to inject this into the app, which will give us a remote shell into the computer. This is actually a really cool demonstration, because this is how things get hacked in the real world. So, all right, I'm a hacker. I mean, I'm going to do it all on the same machine, but here I am waiting for connections to this machine on port 4444, right? And over here, this is an app that is vulnerable to command injection, meaning I can execute any Node.js code. So what was it again? Child process.exec sync, and we just pass that in because that's what we want to execute. So basically, I am going to send this JavaScript code to the server. It's going to execute it, and then now in this terminal here, I will have a remote connection back to that server where I can execute any command, and I have access to the full file system as well. So this is going to work. Let's watch it. So we go here. We do this. We go here, and we're going to say, please open a remote shell there. Dang. It didn't work. I think it's because it's running inside the Docker container. Is there a Node.js option? Well, see, it tries to do the thing we were doing earlier, but that's breaking on my Mac. It spawns sh, creates a socket. Yeah, here's what we'll do. Let's see if this one works. We're going to minify this so it turns it into a single line of code. And then this is what we're going to send to the server. Go. Oh, but I wanted to change it to we don't want to spawn? I don't know. Let's see if this one works. NC-E should work in Alpine, but yeah, that's the one that wasn't working. We'll try it one more time. Yeah, it's Alpine. If we look at the Docker file, 12 Alpine. Can Docker containers connect to the host by default? I don't believe so. Like, yeah, there are entire like categories of attacks for when a if a hacker gets into a Docker container, but then they want to break out of the Docker container. If the network is set up, it can make requests to the local network within that Docker container, but it only has Ash. Okay, so let's try it with Ash. Now, all right, I'm gonna stop doing it. Regardless, it was still cool because I'd never done that before. Now I know I can do that. So this thing is running, and then on some other computer, we do the, which one was it? This one. And then now this computer is in. Yeah, this is my entire MacBook. I'm gonna get out of here. Okay. Let's move on. So these are examples of command injection. Let's see if there was any other ones. Log injections. Cool. This specific vulnerability is all about the fact that we're just passing values here into the logger. And it's saying we could do something like log forging. Log forging, meaning because we're just passing in the username that the user is logging in with, we could technically pass in a username that's like new line, and then on the next line, just come up with some log that you want to appear in the server-side logs. So let's try it. And this specific code is running when someone tries to log in. So let's do it. So if I pass in username as /in cool log things here, I submit it. If we look, the /in didn't get picked up. Is it the other in? /in? Yeah, basically what I was expecting with the log forging is that we could make something appear on the next line that just appears like a legitimate log, but actually was just what the user tried to log in as. /r? /in? Not quite. Oh yeah, because we have to double escape it. Yeah. Or not. Right? I was pretty sure in in Node.js, like if I put a slash in right here, it's going to do a new line. Triple. Yeah, and actually, I will say this is something that I am guilty of in my apps when I'm doing like server-side logging. I will just pass values in here. I don't think it's the like the biggest issue because they're not really injecting commands. They're not accessing sensitive data. They're essentially just putting logs into the system that otherwise wouldn't be there. And the way that this says to fix it is to pull in this library that does encoding, which I haven't heard of. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, so it has encode for HTML, encode for JavaScript. It has a bunch of built-in functions that will encode it. And in this case, they're encoding it with in different ways. So for HTML, JavaScript, or for URLs. Cool. Oh well. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, so this is actually another interesting thing that gets to the idea of doing server-side validation versus back-end. Front-end validation versus back-end validation, right? So, and hello, Cheeky. We're hacking a Node.js app. So we have this vulnerable app. It's called NodeGoat, and we have been doing bad things to it. So if we go back to this example, try with I'm over that one. I'm over it now. But if we go back to this example, this is just evaluating exactly what is passed into the server. One way you might go about fixing this is, let's say you don't fix the backend code by using parseInt. Let's say on the front end, you only allow numbers to be passed to the backend. So if you do something like this. Now, is the type number? No, it's not. Oh, that was allocations? Oh, not contributions. I see. I see. Well, we should be able to fix it in contributions as well. Let's look at views, contributions. And then for each one, it has an input type text. Yeah. So yeah, we can actually just fix this right here. We're going to set this type to number. It's interesting to me that they didn't have that fix in here. Fix, yeah. So now I couldn't even, I mean, I guess this is letting me do it. Oh yeah, it actually prevents it from being submitted. So if I were to even try to send in like process.exit, the front end prevents the request from even happening. So this is like first level of security, right? But I technically could just recreate the post request and send that value anyways. So this is like an example of why you always want to do server-side validation as well. and not just client-side validation, because sure, this is fine. However, if I were to open up some network tool and make a post request to this contributions endpoint, I could send anything I want in a post request. Oh yeah, you're absolutely. Yeah. Someone mentioned I could just edit the DOM. if I'm a savvy user, I could go in here and change this to type text. So look at me, I'm a hacksaw. And did I fix it? That's illegal. I think I fixed the wrong one. So we'll change this to type text. Yeah, there we go. And so now I'm a savvy user, and I've gone in and I've changed it from a number input to a text, and boom, I just crashed the server because I can still inject commands. So this is an example of why you always want to do like sanitation or validation on the server side. It actually doesn't even matter if you do it on the front end, because it's going to get to your back end somehow. So you want to do this here so that you're not actually evaluating the thing. Yeah, exactly. Bloated. We just demonstrated that. Bloated knickknack. Because we're evaluating the request body, it literally just crashed the server. So yeah. Cool. Okay, so that's it for all of the A1 vulnerabilities. So we had command injection, log injection, and NoSQL injection. And the takeaway from all of this is basically sanitize user inputs, right? Never trust anything coming from that could potentially be provided by users on your backend. Always assume that every value you're passing into a log or that you're passing into a database query, always assume that it's coming from a bad actor, and you need to sanitize it. You need to make sure that you're not doing anything that could crash your server or make your server non-responsive, that kind of thing. Yeah, so this repo is completely open source. It's from the Open Web Application Security Project, and it's called Node.js. After you spin up the Docker container, you can go to /tutorial, and then it kind of like walks you through. And then like as you search through the source code, it has comments about why the specific thing is vulnerable and then how to fix it. Yep. Can you become a programmer even if you have ADHD? Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody can be a programmer. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at cross-site scripting, because this is one that comes up all the time, especially in this chat. People try to do things like this. Cool. So every message you're sending here in Twitch chat is popping up over here on this custom app that I built, and it is web-based. And so if my app was vulnerable to cross-site scripting, if someone sent a message that looks like that, my app would actually execute this code in the on air, and then users could, or an attacker could put anything they wanted in there. And what's up, Leaky? Thanks for being here. As you can see in my case, I'm handling it. Anytime someone tries to embed an image altogether, I replace it with this. And then anytime, yeah, I mean, you technically could try to inject an entire script, like this. Boned. And you'll see that it just shows up as the escaped value, right? It doesn't actually execute that value. If my overlay were to execute that, that is an example of cross-site scripting. So let's see what example they have in here. Yeah, this is an example of a stored cross-site scripting attack. And let's just search the code base for A2, A3. I actually think this has to do with, okay, so right now, is this still, yeah, so I'm logged in as John Doe. I'm just a regular user of the system. And if I go to my profile, I'm going to change my first name to be this. the exactly the thing we just saw. On error alert pwned. Cool. So I'm gonna submit this. Bank routing number does not comply with requirements for format specified. Profile update. It's testing the bank routing number against this. It just needs to be a number. Seriously? Oh, follow, yeah, with a pound at the end. Oof. But this is actually demonstrating a regular expression denial of service attack, which we'll look at later. Okay. Go. Okay, so we can see this alert is happening. Now John Doe's first name is that script tag, right? And actually, if we look at the page, actually, I think it's going to be up here. So up here is where it was rendering out John Doe's name. And you can see that it basically just inserted his first name as this image tag right into the page itself. And so anytime I go to my profile, I immediately get that pwned alert. Or like any page I go to, I immediately get that alert pwned because it's attempting to, well, it's not attempting, it's rendering it in this dropdown up here. Anytime it reloads anyways. Okay, great. So at this point, John Doe's first name is image source on error alert. That is his first name. But that's stored in the database. So if I were to log in as an admin, and I were to look at a list of all the users, John Doe's first name is going to execute. It's going to execute that script. I forget what the admin users. Admin 123. Okay. So check it out. I'm now logging in as admin, and boom, pwned. So here's the important thing to note: this script that just ran is running in the context of the admin user. So actually, let's make it even more clear as to what are the possibilities here. So if we log back in as John Doe, and we change his first name to be this image source on error document.alert document.cookie, so we can get access to his cookies. Cool. Did I do that right? Maybe not. No way. Oh, I did. It's an error. I need to just do alert, not document.alert. Alert document.cookie. Right? Yeah. Or is it document.cookies? I guess it's just using a session, or are the cookies already HTTP only? Yeah, the session cookie is HTTP only. That should have been broken. Maybe it's a new default for the session. It could be that the session package now sets a sensible default, like HTTP only. But let's see. So this started. Trying real hard to break this app. Yeah. Did it restart? Yeah, it should have restarted. It's still HTTP only. Okay. So the cookie is set by the server side. So the server side code would be the one to say that this cookie should be HTTP only, and it's actually supposed to be, because we haven't fixed it yet by saying HTTP only true. But my guess is that the session library now does it by default, whereas it didn't used to. But let's see. So if we look, I don't have any. Okay, yeah. So now HTTP only is false. Great. And so if I were to log in, let's do this. Oh, that's right. Every time I shut down the container, the database gets wiped away. I probably should make a pull request to their repo, because really what we want in the Docker Compose is a volume for the database image as well. I need to make some pull requests. Regardless, we can do this. Cookie, yeah. And the routing number just has to end with a £. Cool. Now check it out. This is actually this is JavaScript that's executing that has access to the cookie. So PureLol is asking, what is this HTTP only thing? This is the consequences of that. So because this cookie was set by the server and the server did not set that cookie to be HTTP only, that means that JavaScript can access the cookie, right? So like, I mean, I could write code that like parses the cookie, but JavaScript running in the web browser has access to that cookie. Great. But now, because user John Doe has their first name set to a cross-site scripting thing, and that's stored in the database, when the admin user lists all of the users here, it runs John Doe's first name, which is a script tag, which runs that JavaScript, which has access to the cookie. Yeah, so if HTTP only is set to true, then JavaScript cannot access that cookie at all. So that's why earlier it was logging blank. But here's what this means. So right now it's really simple in terms of what it's just doing. It's just alerting the cookie value. But we could do some interesting stuff. We could actually write some fetch code that sends that cookie somewhere. So let's just do this. We're gonna fetch. I'm gonna spin up a little server. Bad guy. Cool. Okay, so this is going to get saved in the database. When the admin loads the page, it's going to attempt to make a post request thingy method post. It's going to attempt to make a post request to this server / bad guy and send the cookie as the body. So, okay, so I'll just save that. Right now, if we look, it's probably just going to, it'll just have an error because there's nothing running on that port. Yeah, so right now it's just failing. But here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna spin up my own little backend app that it'll allow for cores. So I'm gonna make a bad guy API. Actually, I'm gonna use the Create Express API. Cool. Yeah, I saw that article. I didn't get to read all of it, but someone was like, we can write CSS code that talks to a database. Hello, Veritatas. Thanks for being here. Okay. So this is my own little backend server here. Is that what I did? 9999? Yeah, 9999. So I'm a bad guy. I have this server running. Let's say I have a specific route on my server. When someone makes a post request to it, I do stuff with the information. Thanks for the cookies. Okay, but for now, I'm just gonna log rec.body. To do, save to a file or write to a database. Great. I'm gonna spin this up. Oh, 9999 is in use. Let's pick a different port. 4299. Great. So bad guy is listening. We are going to set our username to be this image tag that has an on-error script, which is going to make a post request to that bad guy with the cookie anytime someone loads it. So if we look over here at the bad guy, the body is just text. Okay. I can do better. Did I do the wrong port? Oh no. How do I get it back? I just want to be able to copy that script tag. I want to keep typing it. I mean, I guess I could just look in the database. I put the wrong port in. Yeah, I don't want to type it all over again. I lost it. Should be here. There it is. Copy outer HTML. Okay. Okay. This should do it. So that's there. Now, as I click around this site, it's making a post request every time it loads it, and we can see it didn't work. Do I have the JSON body parser in this API? Yeah, we have JSON. Well, did HTTP didn't get set back to true, did it? We could, you're right, we could just use a GET request. Let's look really quick though. HTTP only is false. Stringify an object there. Yeah, that works. Yeah, this is a bit of an XSS tutorial. So I'm showing what the vulnerability is and like why it's bad, and then we'll show how to fix it. But that's the body. The backend does have body parser. Oh, you're right. Yeah, it is the... Oh, I forgot how... all the stuff you needed for fetch. So this is why I'm not that excited about fetch being in Node.js. Because you would still have to... You still have to do a lot of stuff. You have to add headers. You have to manually parse and unparse things. Whereas packages like Axios do all that for you. Yeah, but you're totally right. We need to do this. There it is. Okay. So this is the winner. This is the piece that we want. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my profile. I'm gonna set my username to be an image with an onError attribute that is this malicious code that is going to send my cookie or anybody's cookie off to some server anytime they even look at my first name. So we should be able to see these coming in. Yeah. So now as I like navigate throughout the website, because every single page is executing my first name and executing that code there, we can see that it's sending my cookie off to this bad guy server, right? Okay, now for the interesting part. Over here, I'm logged in as an admin, right? So this is the admin user, and he has a list of all the users in the system. So because it's going to execute that code right there as his first name, now the bad guy has the cookie for the admin. Oh, so what can the bad guy do? The bad guy can take this cookie value and use it. So this is known as like a cookie, like I guess it's a replay attack. So now as the bad guy, I could go in here and I could change my cookie. Can I change? Can I edit the value? Edit the value. So now I've manually set my cookie to be this value, and then watch what happens. If I go to the home page, I should be... Oh yeah, I am the admin. see, you can see I'm the NodeGoat admin. I just didn't go to the right page. I need to go to benefits. Yeah. So look at that. So because as a bad user, I was able to set my username to be some sort of script that got executed. I set that script to send those cookies off to some bad server that's listening, and then when the admin finally used the app, it sent his cookie off, and I was able to use it, and now I can reuse his cookie to do everything as the admin. Yeah. So there's no cores because the backend server that the bad guy, wrote set an access control allow origin star header. You can see it happen as I navigate. So like if we refresh this page, look at the network tab. So this makes a request off to bad guy. But you can see that the bad guy server, well, first of all, he says, thanks for the cookies. But you can see that it's responding with this header, which means that the bad guy server will let the request come from anywhere. So it doesn't even have to deal with cores. Yeah, so now let's talk about how do we fix this, because this is bad, right? Basically, anybody that looks at my user profile page or looks at anywhere that will render this bad guy's username, we're going to get their cookies, and then we could essentially replay those cookies, reuse them, and do things in the context of some of other users. I missed a bunch of supports. Pablo, thanks for the $100, the 100 bits, not $100. One Computer Guy, thanks for the 10 months, and the Timmy, thanks for the 16 months, and Type Error, thanks for that Prime sub. The stream won't be on YouTube for a while, but you can always go to this page here. And all of my streams on Twitch, you can watch them at least for the next 60 days. And then eventually they'll be on YouTube. Will I switch to TypeScript? There's a time and a place for TypeScript. This stream is not the place for TypeScript, mainly because I do a lot of like quick, easy proof of concept kind of stuff. And TypeScript is very cumbersome. You have to create a lot of types and interfaces and everything else. And when I'm writing code fast, TypeScript really slows me down. But in the workplace, or if I'm writing professional code, I will use TypeScript because it's like documenting code, and it's easier for other people to work on and stuff like that. But I don't use TypeScript when we're doing fun stuff because TypeScript isn't fun. It's cumbersome. Okay, let's fix this. So how do we do that? The first step is to escape the values, right? Like that's one thing you want to be doing to begin with, because you can see right here, it actually is just embedding that image tag, right? So the preferred thing was that if it didn't even run that image tag, it would the preferred thing is if it actually just showed the text right here. And the way we can fix that is just by escaping with the template engine that's being used. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a hot take that TypeScript isn't fun. Like, TypeScript is not. It's cumbersome. You have to write more code than you usually would. That's not fun to me. I don't like writing code for code's sake. Cool. Yeah. So the way you do this will vary depending on like how you're doing server-side rendering or whatever else. But specifically, this app is using the Swig view engine, and there's an option in the Swig view engine to say auto escape true. And now what that will do is whenever this page is rendered, instead of executing this value within the page, it's going to be escaped. So we'll just see the value on the page. And if we look at it, it's still there. So we set auto escape true. The server isn't restarting. Why is that? Bloated Knickknack is saying, say someone had already done this. The HTTP only flag would immediately prevent this issue any further, even if their name remained as the exploit script. HTTP only thing would only work if the cookies are reissued. Because cookies that are already stored in the that didn't have HTTP only set, they're not going to get recreated with that value just automatically. The user has to like relog in or be reissued that cookie that has the HTTP only flag on it. Yeah, I don't know why I have to do this. Oh no, that's the thing. Now that I've killed it, the database got dropped. So I got to do this again. Well, regardless of what I was setting, the server wasn't restarting when I changed the file. That's why I had to do that. Cool. Yeah, so this should be sending requests off to the bad guy. Yeah. And then now it's, oh, but we do have auto escape true, so it's actually not doing that anymore. So if I do this, log in as the admin. Great. This is what I want to see. So essentially, instead of the page actually like trying to embed that image, this is escaped so that it doesn't even try to execute the code. It basically just shows what the value of it is on the page itself. It's not actual DOM elements. It's just the text content of this element. So this is the first step. You absolutely should do this. So you're either using something like your view engine and setting it to automatically escape, or you may have seen on my stream before, when we're ever doing front end like DOM stuff, we use a library called DOM Purify, and that will essentially strip out any unwanted tags and different things like that. So how does it escape? One character at a time. So basically, it would need to look at the incoming text, and like if it sees any greater than signs, it needs to convert that into the HTML entity. If it sees other special characters as well, it's going to convert those into HTML entities, and it'll send it back as those HTML entities. So if we take a look at the... Yeah, so you can see when the page actually gets returned from the server, everywhere that had a special character is using these HTML entities. So the ampersand LT is the less than sign, ampersand quote is like the double quotes. So instead of actually sending the syntax with the greater than signs and everything else, the server side is replacing it before the page is rendered. And then the way to do it like on the front end is to use something like DOM Purify, which is going to actually just strip those things out entirely. It won't even try to escape them. Well, I guess that's an option that you can set. Okay, so that's step number one. Step number two is we shouldn't even be able to access the cookie with JavaScript. So if I turn this back off, why is it not restarting? If we look at my Docker container, it's copying everything from this directory into the working directory. Yeah, and so React and Vue will do some escaping or just like removing of those characters entirely. But that's why, like in React, the only way to really be vulnerable to cross-site scripting is if you use a dangerously set inner HTML, because that basically goes around all of the protections that the React library already has in, that's escaping values that are passed in as props and like being rendered on the component. Those get escaped by default. Same thing in Vue.js. Auto escape? I'm not sure if I've used that library before. Does DOM sanitize do it for the whole DOM for you? Oh no, so you or DOM purify, you pass specific values into it. So it's not going to just do it for the whole DOM. You say let's say I want to escape or sanitize one specific value, and you just pass it into the library and then do something with the resulting value. Oh, I think that's why. NodeMon isn't watching it. Server.js? Oh goodness, I don't want to lose this value again. Keep losing. Cool. That's what it needed. The nodemon script was broken. There are several things that I can actually make a pull request for on this project. Okay, so we should be back to not escaping inputs. Well, the database got reset. So let's fix that. Okay. Great. John Doe's going to come in here. They're going to set their name to be this image tag. Boom. It's now in the database. And then our bad guy server that's listening over here, we're just going to clear it to make sure that we're getting the latest values. And then when the admin comes over here and looks at the page, behind the scenes, it's actually sent their cookie off to our server. Great. The other fix for this is to make the cookie HTTP only, because right now JavaScript has access to document.cookie, and if we make the cookie HTTP only, then JavaScript won't have access to it at all. So that just happens in our session configuration. We can set HTTP only to true, and now the server should restart, and then any cookies that get set are going to be HTTP only. Cool. So we can see that our app is still technically vulnerable because it is still sending requests to our server, but JavaScript doesn't have access to the cookie. So even when the administrator is toggling around and using the website, it's still sending requests to the bad guy server, which is still actually a bad thing, right? Because there's a lot of other stuff that I could log on this bad guy server. Like I could log the IP address that the request is coming from. That's socket dot IP connection. Address. Cool, like this. If the admin had remained logged in and refreshed the cookie, would that still have been sent as the admin would not have a cookie? Yeah, so basically the admin would need to re-log in or re-get their cookie set somehow. A lot of servers actually have a set cookie header on every single request, so it probably would have happened pretty quickly because any request that the admin made, the server would respond with what their current cookie is, and it would now have the HTTP only flag on it. But yeah, typically if you're going to go in, if you didn't have that setting set already, you probably would just invalidate all existing sessions and make every single user re-log in to make sure that they have that HTTP only value on their cookies. Okay, so now all I was going to show is that the requests are still being made to the bad guy server. They're still being made, but we don't have access to the cookie anymore because of the HTTP only thing. I don't know how to get an IP address in Node. There's a way to do it, but basically it's still bad because the code is still executing. So then the other fix that we absolutely need to do as well is to escape the values that are being rendered out. So I save that, and now we've fixed both things. So even if we were vulnerable to cross-site scripting, those scripts could not access the cookie. Cool. And we're no longer executing this code on the page itself. We're just displaying the value. which prevents that as well. Yeah, there's a way to do it. I'm not gonna. I could have Googled it. Rec.address. But the only reason I was showing that is because we're still vulnerable, and there's still other things that the bad guy server could do, even if it's not getting the cookie. Like we could basically like reveal the IP address of the user making the request. We could see what times of day the admin is using the app, and like that would be logged as well. There's some bad things that we could do there. Okay, so that's it for cross-site scripting. Essentially, it's when a user is able to execute code on a website in the context of other users. And the example we're showing here is known as a stored cross-site scripting attack. So because John Doe's username or first name is that injection, that's actually stored in the database. If we looked at the database, we'd see that it has that value inside of it. So that's a stored cross-site scripting. There's other cross-site scripting where like if a page is taking in like query parameters here, it's possible that you could put some stuff in there that gets injected and ran as on the page. That's a form of cross-site scripting that isn't stored. Cool. Yeah, I'm going to take a break. We've been live for 2.5 hours. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways to do it. Ultimately, you just need to escape the values that are on the page. Like even in the back end on the route for updating profile information, we could add some checks to make sure that the user's name only contains valid values. So like if we look at the profile route right now, it is just taking the first name from the request body and then passing that right into the page to be rendered. So this is for update. Where are we doing the update? Oh, it's there. Here we go. Profile.update user, and then that's passing in their first name. So the profile data access object, the DAO. Here, whenever we do update, we could do some validation and make sure that like it doesn't contain special characters. There's no less thans, there's no greater thans, that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll see you later, TypeScript Tea Time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for dropping in. All right. When we come back, I'm just gonna do one more example and like go through the code. So let's vote on it. Actually, we'll vote when I come back because some of you might not be here. But we're either gonna do, I think, broken auth. So we'll actually show like why we do password hashing, and then we could actually, this one's fun, the cross-site request forgery, because there's like a page that says like win an iPad, but when you click on it, it steals your bank account information. So that one's fun too. We're gonna do both of these. So when I come back, we're gonna show why you should hash your passwords, and then we're gonna show an example of cross-site request forgery. So while I'm gone, I'll leave you with a YouTube video. How would you handle names with apostrophes? Yeah, you would just escape it. You would allow it, but like you would store the HTML entity. You may or may not store the HTML entity. You could store it with the apostrophe, but then when you're rendering it on the front end, you would want to make sure that you're using the HTML entity when you're actually like rendering it out. This repo is called NodeGoat. All right, what am I going to leave you with? Got some content. Yeah, I'm going to leave you with this video. A casual explanation of destructuring objects and arrays. No, stream isn't over. I'll be back in 15 minutes. And we're going to look at hashing passwords and cross-site request forgery when I get back. So, do. I have to find the audio cable, but I'll get that going and I'll be back in 15 minutes. So, see ya. Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. This is going to be a quick intro to destructuring, and then we'll also talk about where destructuring might be useful, especially in the scenario of like you're in Node.js, you have a module that exports multiple things, and you want to import multiple things into another file. But we'll get there. Let's just first start with like what is basic destructuring. So let's say I have myself an object called person. And in that person, I have a name, which is CJ, just like that, because that's me. So this object represents me. And let's say I want a variable that has the name of that person inside of it. So I could do this. I could say name equals person.name. My linter is yelling at me because it says prefer destructuring. But let's see what happens here. So I'm going to use Quokka, which is a tool that will run my code inside the editor. But you can see we've done it, right? We've extracted that name property into a variable called name. And that's great. This is like the old way of doing it. And destructuring is syntactic sugar that makes it a little bit nicer to do something like this. And where it is really nice is when you have multiple properties. So you could have something like, let's say I have a dog, and that dog has a name, which is Panzer. And let's say I have a snack, and that snack is a cashew butter cup. And I have a drink, and that drink is water. So now our object has a bunch of properties, and let's say I wanted more variables. I could say something like snack equals person dot snack. Did I spell drink wrong? No, I didn't. And then we could log the snack. Oh, good job. Good job, NovaScript. Not the snake, the snack. And that should be cashew buttercup. Great. And we could do this all day, right? We could create variables that access individual properties. Now, where destructuring is useful is instead of having to access each individual property and then put it into a variable, you can do it all in one go. So this is the old way, and then in ES 2015, destructuring was introduced. So what you do is you put an object on the left-hand side, or you put curly braces on the left-hand side of the equal sign. It's a little weird, but we'll do this. We'll say const curly braces equals person. All right? This currently is invalid syntax. And now what I do is inside of these curly braces, I specify all of the properties that I want to pull out and put into a variable. So I can just do name and snack. Done. So basically what I've done here is, so right-hand side is an object or something with properties on it. The left-hand side is curly braces, and I specify the name of each of the properties that are inside of the object that I want to put into variables. And now we have variables name and snack, which is great. And so this is basic destructuring. Instead of having to individually access a property, put it in a variable, we can kind of do it all in one go, just like this. And you can do a lot more interesting things. So you can do things like default assignment. So I can say like, if name is not specified, then name should be CJ. And so actually, let's show you. I'll show you what happens if that property was not on there. So right now we're destructuring name and snack from that. Oh, you're right. Let it be known, this is object destructuring. I'll show array destructuring really quick, but let's say I don't have a name property. Now when I destructured it, it's undefined, but I can combine that with default values and say, if there is no name in there, then set name to be that. And now I get CJ. So this is really useful if you're like dealing with results from an API and potentially a value doesn't exist in the response. You can do things like default assignment. You can also rename the variables. So if we put name back in there, now we're making it, we're extracting name, right? And let's say I actually want to rename this variable. So inside of the object, it's called name. So I do have to say name here, but let's say I want to put it in a variable called my name. I can just do name colon my name. And now that creates a variable called my name. And you can see the error I get is name is not defined because I no longer have a variable called name. I can now use the variable my name like that. So there's renaming, there's default assignment. The other thing is like nested destructuring. So let's go deeper. How do you change the name and the default? Oh, I've never, they are like, is that a trick question? I think, can you do this? My name equals wat. Hey, that's some weird syntax. But basically this says, there is a property in the object called name, extract it into a variable called my name, and if it does not have a value, assign it to the value wat. Good call, Alka. Inception destructuring. But we're just going to go back to this. Okay, what I'm going to show you next is like nested destructuring. So you'll notice that there also is a dog with the name Panzer. Now, of course, I could extract out dog, right? Yeah, and this is what we're going to show you right now. How do you get that dog name? So dog, and that gives me the object itself, and it's a reference to that same object. I can get that. Now, let's say I want the dog name. We can go deeper. So if the property you're destructuring is an object, you do curly braces, and then you can specify the properties you want to extract from that nested object. So let's say I do want to extract the name. Now, if I do this, we now technically have an error because we're trying to define two different variables with the name. So in this scenario, I absolutely have to rename one of them. I could call this one my name, and you see that name becomes Panzer. Or I could say name is dog name. And then you'll notice that we no longer are destructuring dog. I think, like, can I do this? Like, extract dog. Crazy. I've never actually done this. I don't know why you would do it, but check it. So if I want to extract the object into a variable called dog, I'll specify it. And then if I want to extract properties inside of that object, I can specify it below that. I literally did not know that you could do this. That's pretty cool. But as you can see down here, is we have a variable called dog. So I've never done that either, but I do know when I should have done that. I didn't know I could. So we have a variable called dog, which is the object, and then we have a variable called dog name, which is just the dog name itself. And this can go infinitely deep. So you can destructure nested properties. You can have default names inside nested properties. You can have default assignment. You can rename them. It goes all the way down. What if you change it? What do you mean? Okay. So that gets into the idea of reference values versus primitive values. So these values, name and snack, are primitives. So if I change them, so right now, if I log person, you should see that it has the name CJ and all that. If I change the variable name, actually I can't because it's a const variable. But let's say we made these let. Let's make these changeable variables. So if I said name equals wat, if we log the name now, we're going to get wat. Right? But if I log the person, what will it be? And why? First non-sub in the chat to tell me will get gifted a sub. So if I log the person right now, what will the value of name be on the person and why? It will be CJ, but why? Oh, that's true, Andrew. We can even talk about that because you can do a default assignment of an object with the default values inside of it. Because if you're changing the var, not the struct itself, or not the object itself, it's not a reference. Yeah, I'll give you a sub, Christinus. And so, so like, because I destructured name, it's a primitive value. It's just it's a copy of the string. But if we look at the original person, they still have the name CJ, and that this just has to do with like primitive versus reference types. Not really anything to do with destructuring, but yeah, good call. Yeah, it was a copy of the value. Okay, and then the other thing I'll show you is like what Andrew talked about is we could do a default assignment of the dog. So let's say we didn't have a dog property. Now you see that we get an error here because I'm trying to destructure dog, but dog is not defined on the original object. But what I can do is I can say dog has a default value of like name, Panzer, like that. Cool. Oh, no. Wait. Can I do that? No, this gets weird because now I want to do this basically. I could do this. I could say dog equals an object where the name is Panzer. Like this. So I am now, if dog is not defined on the original object, set it to be this object with this property name. I'd never done that before, so I don't know how you would do a default assignment and destructure the dog itself. Things get weird. But yeah, this is a default assignment of an object. Cool. Let's put that dog back. All right, so that's destructuring. Yeah, because it's a value type, exactly. Do. Yeah, Alka's going way deep, way deep. This is a mess. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what's known as syntactic sugar, right? Because you can write your code this way, but it's a little bit nicer to do this. Save some lines of code. I don't know. Okay, so this is object destructuring. The other thing I'll show you really quick is array destructuring. So if I have an array of values, and that just has 1, 2, and 3, I can do this. I can say first equals values. And what will first have inside of it? Anyone want to take a guess? Anybody? Anybody? There are 2 flies. Oh, look at him. He landed on my finger. I don't know if you can see him. I literally just put my hand out and he landed on my finger. Okay, go over there. Go over there. One, exactly. Ah! Yeah, so it is just the value 1. So the way array destructuring works is it's very similar, but instead of curly braces, you use square brackets. And we have square brackets, and we're saying the first value in the array should be assigned to this variable called first. You can also have second and third, and of course these are all going to have 1, 2, and 3. And just like object destructuring, I mean, technically you could rename them. You could say this is like wat, who, and fly, and now we have these 3 variables, wat, who, and fly, which are equal to the first 3 values in the array. Yeah. This extension is called Quokka.js. Cool, so you can do array destructuring. One thing you might also do is, let's say I want a variable that has the 3rd value in the array inside of it, but I don't want the first 2. You can just leave those blank. So if you do comma, fly, that skips the first 2 and then puts the 3rd value inside of the variable called fly. And so this is useful if you have an array with multiple things and you know that you only want to extract certain ones at certain indices. It is similar to multiple assignment, yeah, because basically you're taking the values from an array and putting them into multiple variables. You're extracting the prototype with the default constructor? Hey, what about squashing? So this is, yeah, the rest or the spread operator. You wouldn't really use that here. Yeah, so it has the... That's not useful here, but JavaScript does have it. Useful but weird looking, yeah. So here's the other thing. So this okay, so check it. So that's one way to do it. But I'll show you another way, which I kind of prefer. But here's the thing. In JavaScript, everything is an object, right? So if everything is an object, then how could I use object destructuring to get the value 3 and put it into a variable called fly? The first non-sub to tell me will get gifted a sub. So instead of array destructuring, I want to use object destructuring to take this value and put it into a variable called fly. Oh, I know this. To fly, yeah, you got it, Strider. So an array is just kind of like an object that has keys. The key is 2, and then I want to rename it to fly. Look at that. We've used object destructuring on an array. Yeah. So it's because the keys in this array are actually the indices, right? Because you could say 0 is what and 1 is who. And now we've taken the indices in the array and put them into those variables. Weird, yeah. I mean, I actually would prefer this because then you don't have the weird, like, empty floating commas. That's it. All right, everyone. I think that's all there is to say about destructuring. One thing I'll show you real quick as like a practical example of this is, let's say we have a file called mathutils. And inside of this, I have a function called add that takes in a and b. And that won't pass my code review. This just returns a plus b. And then let's say I have another function called multiply. And I can return a plus b. And I want to make these two functions available to the outside world. So I'm in Node.js, and I'm going to use common.js, which is use module.exports in require. And thank you, Bilney, for the Twitch Prime sub. So I'm going to export an object that has an add property and a multiply property on it. And so this module exports an object. I can import that object into another file and then use those functions. So let's do that here. I actually think Quokka is going to break if I do this, but I could put it into an object called mathutils, like that. Yeah. So only the Pro edition allows us to import files, so that's fine. But did I do multiply with a plus sign? Oh, yeah, you're right. It should be a multiplication sign. But regardless, I have functions here. I've exported them as an object, and now I want to use those elsewhere. Now, of course, I could just import the entire object. And then, and let me kill Quokka really quick. So I could do mathutils.add or mathutils.multiply. 1 and 2, or multiply. Exactly, right. But now that you know how destructuring works, we basically can put these into a non-namespaced function. So I can just say add and multiply, and now I directly have access to those functions, and I don't need to namespace them on mathutils. So that's like a practical example. I mentioned we're in common.js. You could do a very similar thing in ES 2015. It's a little bit different because you basically export each individual function and then you would import them, but it uses a similar syntax in that you're destructuring those exported, named exports. The multiply function is wrong. I think we fixed it. What's up, Bob? All right, I think that's it. Anything else I should talk about in terms of array destructuring, object destructuring? This was fun. We talked a lot about a lot of stuff. Yeah, I think I did see a message. Thank you, Alka, who says welcome back. I realized that the video is actually a whole lot louder than my voice. Yeah, I don't know. Hey, everybody. Cool. All right, welcome back. We're going to keep on hacking Node.js. So for those of you just joining us, we are essentially going through this project called NodeGoat, which is a vulnerable Node.js application. So it has a bunch of vulnerabilities in it, and we're gradually fixing them and talking about them. Cool. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that video. If you're not subbed on YouTube, feel free to check it out. I post stuff like that all the time. I mainly post like stream VODs, but yeah. Cool. So the next things we're going to look at in this are broken authentication. So yeah, I think right now our users that in the database do not have hashed passwords. But let's just take a look. So like when a user gets created, yeah, we're just putting that password directly into the database. But But what we should do is hash the password. So I actually want to just get set up like a visual into our database so we can see the actual values as they exist in there. Let me get that set up. While I'm doing that, I'm actually going to persist changes on the MongoDB Docker instance. I need to figure out what that is. Mm-hmm. 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 etc/mongo? Is that it? MongoDB data directory? Hello. I'm not familiar with PHP. We can look into it to see what algorithm or what crypto password hash uses in PHP. It's probably bcrypt, but we'll look into it. Varlib. Really? Is it just okay? Thank you, Guif. Data/db. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there it is. There it is. That's what I needed. So, if you're not familiar with Docker, basically this will make it so that all of the database stuff doesn't get cleared out every time I restart the Docker container. So let's kill it, restart it, and then now my data won't go away. And then the other thing is I want like a visual database browser. Visualizer? Is there like a web-based project for that? Similar to like PG admin that I can just put as a Docker container. I know like there's desktop apps like Robo3T or Compass, but is there a web UI? Humongous, maybe. A secure and modern online MongoDB GUI. Okay. Humongous Docker container. Is this just hosted? Come on. Yeah. I mean, I know that I could use those other ones. I was just really looking for something similar to PG admin. Is Mongo Express? A web-based MongoDB admin interface. Cool. Can I see an example of it though? Seems fine. Mongoku? A web scale GUI for MongoDB. It's fine. We're gonna use this one, the Docker one. Cool. So we're gonna add another service, Mongo Express. We're gonna use this info. So the image is just Mongo Express. Put some ports on it. we have an environment variable. And this should be hosted at Mongo there. Okay. The other thing they added was a link. What's the syntax for linking? Is that it? Oh, they're replaced by networks. Networking. And I can just put both containers on the same network. Link is legacy. Okay. Then tell me what to do. Because I'm not seeing it. They're already, are we saying they're already on the same network? Okay. Yeah, so this thing is just going to be called Mongo, which should be its name. I mean, if they're already on the same network, we should be fine. Let's just see. Let's bring it down. Bring it back up. We should now have this Mongo Express UI, which will let us look at the Mongo database. Yeah, it seems fine. So now we're just going to go to localhost 8081. This is my getting started screen. I need to change the port. Do they have a port environment variable? Let's just see if I can do it here. Did that work? Oh, I forgot. It needs to bind it to another internal port as well. So yeah, leave the port as is, but outside the container, we'll get to it from 4299. How about that? Okay. Guiv is saying, do I think programming is good content to start on Twitch? I mean, how do you see your community and your growth? I've been around for a very long time. I mean, I've been doing this for like over 3 years, like close to 4 years probably. And my community has grown over time, especially because of YouTube. But that being said, there's a big community of people watching programming content on Twitch. So yeah, I think if it's something you enjoy doing, go for it. I mean, the potential viewer base for like playing certain video games and stuff like that is going to be a lot more than the programming community on Twitch. But I don't know. I enjoy doing it. I don't know. Okay, so it's working. We can see the data inside the database. And so as an example, we're going to re-log in as user 1. And then we're going to go in and set our name to be that cross-site scripting vulnerability, which should be fixed at this point because we fixed all that other code. Cool. So we save that. We see that we're not vulnerable to it anymore. It's actually like just showing the value instead of actually executing the value. And then this would be hilarious if Mongo Express is vulnerable to it. It's not. Great. So Mongo Express is doing the right thing. And we can see that in the database, this user's first name is actually set to be this cross-site scripting attempt. Great. But what you'll also see, and some of you might have already seen this, the passwords are in plain text, right? So as an attacker, if I were to somehow get a hold of this user collection, I know exactly what passwords I can use. Look, I didn't even know this user existed, but now I can log in as them. So now I can be user 2. Look at that. I'm Will Smith. And that's because I can see their passwords, right? So this is what we're going to fix. We're going to fix it so that when users are created, their passwords are hashed in the database. And Ashley B, thank you for that Prime sub. I think there's some other supports I missed. Type Error with the Prime, Mr. Jonathan Strange with the Prime, and congrats to El Choto earlier who got the question right, which is why I gifted them a sub. And thank you, Ashley B, for the 8 months. Okay, so what are we going to fix next? The fact that those passwords are not hashed in our database. So if we just search for fix for A2. Yeah, so we can see that when new users are created, it just puts the password directly in the database. Instead of doing that, we should do something like this, which hashes the password. Also, we don't need to do it synchronously, but that's fine. So this is using this library, bcrypt Node.js. And I think even bcrypt isn't like the latest and greatest. There's also a hashing algorithm called Argon that's more secure than bcrypt, but bcrypt is decent enough. So when you're putting passwords into your database, you should absolutely use bcrypt. Yeah, so there's a few things that do need to change, right? Because so this is the code that runs when it puts a new user into the database, it hashes it. But the other thing we need to do is when a user is logging in, we have to use bcrypt to compare their password. So right now, because we were storing it as plain text before, we can just do an equals to compare the two. But now that we're hashing it with bcrypt, we need to use bcrypt to compare the two, because bcrypt has an algorithm for determining if a given hash can be was generated using the given password. So this is the plain text password that they're logging in with, and then we're comparing it against the hash that's in the database. Cool. I'm curious about the seeds, though. When it's seeding the database, hopefully it just uses these create user functions when it seeds the database. So let's wipe the database and reload it, because those because right now all of the passwords in the database are not hashed. And so for this to work for any other user, the passwords in the database need to be hashed. I could technically write a script that like goes over each user and hashes the password, but I think I'll just reseed the database, and that should put them in as hashed. Let's see what scripts we have. db seed. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just execute this directly within the container. Yeah, okay. Let's see if it worked. Let's see how it's seeding the database. Wait, what was that running? That was running grunt db reset. We look at our grunt file. It has a db reset in here somewhere. Node artifacts db reset. Ah, I see. We we need to update our seed file. Yeah, there's a lot of pull requests, a lot of changes I want to make to this. I'm going to add as a pull request because really we need to put this this comment in the DB seeds as well. Like this needs to be right here so that I can find it, so that I know that I need to fix it. But regardless, now when we seed the database, we're putting in hashed passwords. So instead of putting in the plain text password, we're going to put in the hashed password. Cool. And now if we look at the database, great. So now when we look at the database, we don't see plain text passwords anymore. We just see the hashed version of the password. And hashes typically are not reversible. Like there is no easy way for me to look at this hash value and get back the actual underlying value. Hashing is a one-way algorithm. So it goes from, in this case, the plain text to the hashed value. And the only way to go in reverse would be to have some sort of like brute force method where you're like trying every single value and hashing it to see if it is the actual value. Cool. So we fixed it. Our database doesn't have plain text passwords anymore. And then now we should be able to log in. And behind the scenes, it's comparing against a hashed password. Great. Yeah, and exactly. So Slithufer is mentioning MD5. There exists such a thing called rainbow tables, where essentially they people out there, smart people, have hashed like every possible value and put it into a database so you could easily look up the things that were hashed with MD5. In our case, we're using the hashing algorithm bcrypt, which isn't vulnerable to things like rainbow tables. At least that's my understanding of it. I don't know if there's any serious security people in the chat. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But something like bcrypt, because every value that gets created has like a unique salt, and there's a number of rounds that need to happen to compute the hashed value, you couldn't really create a rainbow table for it. But that's why we use bcrypt. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there is Argon 2, which is an even better hash generator. And they all work in a similar way. So just like we are using bcrypt.js, let's see it in the profile view. Oh, it's the user. So right here, this is generating the hash. There's a library for Argon 2 that will work in a very similar way. It's just hashed using the Argon 2 algorithm. Cool. So that was fixing passwords stored in plain text. Let's see if there's anything else. Session timeout and protecting cookies in transit. Cool. Yeah, this is another thing we'll look at because like we've talked about this before when we've implemented auth, where sometimes if your error messages are too specific, attackers can use that against you. So right now there's a specific error message if the username wasn't found, and then there's a specific error message if the password was wrong. So as an attacker, so let's say I'm trying to get into this site here as user 1. I type the wrong password. The error that I get back is invalid password. But as an attacker, that tells me, oh, there is a user called user1. My password is just wrong, so I can try more. If, for instance, I put in the wrong username, it gives me an error that says invalid username. So that tells me, oh, I can just stop trying because I haven't found a, a valid username yet. So the recommendation is that you don't have specific error messages like that. You just have a general error message, so that attackers, it's harder for attackers to tell if they've gotten the wrong username or wrong password. So now this says invalid username and or password instead of being so specific. So isn't that security through obscurity in a way? Because I mean, not all apps follow this advice, right? Like even some of the most popular apps will tell you that your password's wrong, but the user exists. It really is just one more thing to prevent an attacker from figuring stuff out, because ultimately they could use like what's known as a timing attack. So they could see how long it takes for the server to respond here, and that's technically going to be a little bit longer than where the server were to respond to a user that's not found at all, because the request for a user that's not found at all doesn't even go through the bcrypt hashing and comparing the password. It ends sooner. So an attacker could look at the response times and be like, oh, this response time took a little bit longer, so I know that user 1 actually is likely a user. I just have the wrong password. But yeah, that's a thing. What else? Oh yeah, that's the other thing, is requiring better passwords. So this right now, users can sign up with any password they want, and this is just saying that you should force your users to use strong passwords. Yeah. Okay, the last thing we're going to look at is cross-site request forgery. This one is really fun. Yeah. Let's see if I can find it. Cool. So as a bad guy, I would host this bad website somewhere else. I'm just going to clone it down and start it up. Let's see what port it uses. Could you make the response time be standard? Yeah, so that's another thing that people will set their backends up to do is, yeah, so you potentially can make the request last a little bit longer so that all requests seen that way. You can also, there are things that, packages you can add that it has like a Fibonacci sequence of how long it takes to respond. So each new request that was resulting in an error that someone is making takes a little bit longer than the last one. And so that's another way of like doing like rate limiting. So if someone's trying a bunch of different passwords, this way each time they try a new password, it takes a little bit longer for the server to respond. Yeah, I think Express slowdown might be something that implements that. This has vulnerabilities, but let's start it up. Cool. Nice. Wouldn't you want to win a brand new iPhone? wouldn't you want to just click this button? Let me make sure it's all set up right. Because I think I have Node Goat running on port 4000. Well, we could change it. We could change it to win an Android phone. Rec.query.target or yeah, it should be easy enough. So basically, you get somebody to click on this link, and you set the target as this. What's up, Lakshman? Thanks for being here. Cool. If I inspect this form, it now is potentially making a request here. All right, so I think we're all set up to demonstrate it. Here, and then I'm actually gonna demonstrate it over here for this user. So I'm gonna log in as user 1. Great. So I am user 1. Let's say I have my bank account set up as this. Great. Now, for my retirement plan, my savings and everything else are going to go into this specific account number with this routing number, right? Because I am John Doe, that's my settings, right? So a cross-site request forgery attack is when some other website is able to make a request in the context of some other user. And Maddie Two Shoes, thank you for that raid. Welcome in. Welcome in. We are actually about to demonstrate a cross-site request forgery attack. So basically what will happen is, so right now I'm on a different website. So my retirement website is on port 4000, and this hack is on port 44,088. So this is a completely separate server. It could be hosted on a different domain or whatever else. But when I click this button, behind the scenes, it's actually going to update my bank account to be a new value. And actually, just to make it clear, I'm going to go back in and update this. Cool. So John Doe has his bank account number set to this. But let's say John Doe is on some website and he sees this little ad pop up and he's like, oh, I want to win an iPad. He clicks the button. Nothing happens. He clicks it again. Nothing happens. But now when he goes to his profile, behind the scenes, his bank account has been updated by that attacker. So the next time he's supposed to get money, it's going to go into the attacker's account instead of his account. And this is an example of cross-site request forgery. So this is a separate website. A request was made to the other website, but because John is currently logged into that other website, the request that went through was using his same cookie. And so because his cookie's in the browser, when he clicks this button, it's an update to the profile in the context of John Doe. So anybody else that went and clicked this, if they were logged in on their retirement website, it would be updating their bank account to be this attacker's, and now whenever they get money, it's going to go into the attacker's account instead of theirs. Great. How do we fix this? The main way is with a cross-site request forgery token, a CSRF token, where basically every single request to the server has to use a unique value that is only generated and can only be found by visiting the website itself. So we go into the code. We can see the fix is to use the CSRF package. So this is just a middleware that you can install for Express. And then you add your own middleware so that in this case for server-side rendering. So every single request gets this value, CSRF token, that it can use when it renders out the page. So now that I've enabled that, if we go to the specific page that gets rendered, we just add a hidden input that has that CSRF value inside of it. So now every time I render this page, we're going to see, if you look at the source of the page, we'll see this hidden input with a unique CSRF token value. So if I look at the source of this page, I have to log in again because the server restarted. Oh, CSRF is not defined. I need to also pull in the CSRF package. Yeah. There we go. Cool. So I'm going to log in again. And if we go look at profile, if we look at the actual source code of this web page, there's now a hidden input that has this unique randomly generated value. And so every render that the server now does has a unique value. So if I refresh this, we're going to get a new unique value. And if I refresh it again, we're going to get a new unique value. But now when a request is made from this user, from this client, it needs to include the CSRF token in the request. And then in this case, it will, because it's just a form that's being posted. So it's going to include that CSRF token. And then the backend is going to validate that that token is legit before making the update. So now, I believe because I refreshed this several times and got a new value, I'm curious if this is going to break. Let's see. It didn't break, which is fine. But basically, this CSRF value, you can only get it by actually loading this web page. So now, if I were to click this button, we can actually look at the network requests. This is not sending that CSRF token. It has no way, this page has no way of getting that CSRF token to be able to validate the request. So if we look at the network, we're going to send the request here, and then we get a 500 error. And we could come up with a better error than that, but it didn't work. So this time, they weren't able to make the request across to another website because they did not include the CSRF token in the request. So that's the main fix for cross-site request forgery, is to include CSRF tokens in all of your responses, and then also validate those incoming requests to make sure that they have a valid token. Yeah, I wouldn't say HTTPS fixes this, because even if this website was hosted on HTTPS, if I didn't have the CSRF token set up, and the cookies were, I mean, basically, if you look at the source code for this web page, it's just a form. It's literally just a form that has an action that does a post request to some other server. And so because of that, the browser is just going to make a post request on behalf of the user, and whatever cookies are associated with this site that you're making the request to, it's going to include those cookies. The other thing you can do that I don't think they include as a fix here is there's actually an HTTP header you can set to prevent like cookies from being sent or used when they're executed in this way. Yeah, and cores wouldn't fix this either. I mean, because this form isn't using JavaScript to make the request. It's actually using just the browser's post request mechanism to actually make the post request. Because you can see that it's just a form. There's no JavaScript that executes when the form submits. But when I click this button, it is making that post request. Yeah, it might be something with like the same site policy, or there's some headers that are set by Helmet.js that I think would prevent against this. But the main fix is to use something like a cross-site request forgery token. And also the other fix is to like not use cookies. Use something like tokens, a value stored in local storage, because other websites can't access the local storage of other websites. And if you don't have cookies set, then this isn't going to be able to send anything along with the request. I don't know. Everything's a trade-off because basically you could not use cookies, store stuff in local storage, but then if you're vulnerable to cross-site scripting, someone could steal your stuff in local storage. But if you can guarantee that you're not vulnerable to cross-site scripting, then I think local storage is a pretty good spot to save stuff. But I don't know. That was fun. Yeah, and that's exactly the point I'm getting at, war control. People have opinions in both ways. It should be known that you can get it wrong in both ways. Like you could be using cookies and still have them configured wrong. Like let's say you don't enable HTTP only, or let's say you don't have secure signed cookies. That could be an issue. And let's say you're using local storage with tokens instead, but you're vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Then that becomes an issue. So you just have to, whatever you decide to do, you just have to do it right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's all I'm going to show for today. But if you want to try this stuff out as well, you can check out this repo. Clone it down, start it up, and just start looking through the source code because as you saw what I was doing, basically all of the source code has comments in it in terms of fixes for specific items. So like I just searched for fix for A1 or fix for A2, and it shows the vulnerable code that you can fix. Cool. And hello, Loco. I'm doing good. You can use the URL to include session tokens. What do you mean by that? Yeah. And what's up, Vittoria Moretti? Haven't been here in a while. Hope you're doing well. Pretty amazing what you just showed us. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think it's fun. It's for me. It's always fun to what was it on $44.99 to see that webpage with the like win an iPad, because that's what some sites might be doing. Like, imagine that this isn't localhost / profile. Imagine this is chasebank.com/profile update, and or not even Chase Bank, whatever website might be storing like bank account details. And someone could create like a targeted malicious ad that would update your details to point to their stuff instead. Cool. All right, I'm gonna go. Thank you all for hanging out. This was fun. I think we'll do this again in the future, but we'll take a look at Juicebox or Juice Shop, because Juice Shop is a similar thing. It's from the Open Web Application Security Project, OWASP, but it's an e-commerce app that has a bunch of vulnerabilities in it that you can fix. So I think in the future we'll take a look at that one. Oh yeah, what's in the parking lot? Node.js notebooks for VS Code. Let me just look at it. Is that kind of like the Python, like Jupyter notebooks, but it's like a VS Code environment? It is. This is likely a very good teaching tool because you can create notebooks with like executable code and then like share those notebooks. Nice. I'll have to look at this in a future stream, but this is cool. It's probably similar to RunKit. So RunKit lets you do that with JavaScript. Well, if you ever look on npm, there is, on any package on the right-hand side, it usually says try on RunKit. And then it looks like this. So you can like write some code. You can run it. It's not quite like a notebook though. Seems cool. All right. Start thinking to use subdomains or something on a Mac. You just have too much Yeah, I probably should set something like that up. Like I could have a local host name and like have multiple subdomains. Yeah. I have a ton of ports running on my machine. See you later, Lakshman. And so we're going to do a raid. If you're a sub, you can use this raid message. And if you're not a sub, you can use this raid message. And I saw your message, Matty Two Shoes. I'll look at them. So metal and coffee. We'll see what they're doing. I don't know who we're going to raid, but maybe them. Maybe. Next stream is planned for next Friday. The maybe we'll keep the back end theme going, because for the longest time before today we were just doing a lot of front end stuff. So it is fun to like work on back end related stuff. Cool. All right, that's it. That's all. Thanks for hanging out. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, here's this.